pretty good. Yeah, that's not annoying. Unless it does.
May rain tomorrow unless it doesn't.
I think in my career.
Well, the quorum will call the meeting order. Invocation. Reverend, will you lead us a minute's silence for Mark Henry?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Father, as we remember Officer Henry, who passed away recently, Lord, I was rethinking this last week, Lord, about how your word says, Lord, that you are love. Not that you're loving or that that you love other people, God, but that you, by your very nature, are love. Everything you do is love. And so, Father, we don't understand why accidents happen. We don't understand why bad things happen to good people. But, Father, we can trust and know that you are love and that you are good. And so, Father, even in the midst of struggle and trouble and trials, God, we know that you will do what is the greatest good for the greatest number of people over the greatest length of time. You will do that which is most loving. And Father, we too want to be loving just as you are. And so, Father, as the city council meets tonight and as they make some decisions, often tough decisions, we know, Father, that if we would just look to you, we too would be able to do the greatest amount of good for the greatest amount of people over the greatest length of time. And Father, that would be the very thing that is most loving to do. So Father, give us eyes to see, ears to hear, and give us a heart that obeys even when we don't want to. Lord, even your Son, when he was on earth, said, "Not my will, but yours be done, Father." And so, Father, let us follow in his footsteps, not our will, but yours, Father, be done in this place, this night. In Jesus' name, amen.
Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amy, do we have any changes to the agenda? With that, we'll move on to approval of the minutes, June 6, 2018.
There's a couple things under the executive session. It says Mayor Lambert's instead of Sacco. Okay. Those would be the only changes that I could see.
That was a big one.
Yeah.
With those modifications made, I would move to approve the minutes of June 6, 2018 meeting.
I have a motion by Chuck. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mark. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Moving on, financial matters. Appropriation ordinance number 11.
I move that we approve appropriation ordinance number 11.
Second.
I have a motion by Mark and a quick second by Christie. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Public comments. If not, we'll move on to new business and the 2017 audit presentation.
Good evening. It's Neil Phillips from Jared Gilmore and Phillips. Got your audits in front of you.
Welcome.
All right, let's skip past the letters that are in there and dive straight into page 1 of the audit report. The first paragraph talks about what we audited, being the city of Concordia, Kansas, as of December 31st, 2017. The second paragraph talks about management's responsibilities and the fact that everything in this document is considered yours. They're your numbers, your representations with what happened with the city last year and how you ended the year. Then the next couple paragraphs talks about the auditor's responsibilities and the fact that we did your audit in accordance with auditing standards that are generally accepted in the United States of America. And then we also follow the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide. The last couple paragraphs down there at the bottom talks about the basis for adverse opinion. You do because you follow the regulatory basis of accounting. You follow what they call the Kansas cash basis and budget laws, meaning you can't spend it if you don't have it in the fund, cash, and you can't spend it unless you have public approval, being the budget process. Or there's also specific rules for like capital project funds. Capital project funds, that's why you'll have a contractor come back and say he needs an approval for a $1,000 change order on a $1.2 million contract. He knows if he doesn't get that $1,000 change order approved by you, it doesn't get approved. He can't legally be paid because it has to have public approval on the budget on that project. So if you flip over to the next page, second paragraph down, unmodified opinion on the regulatory basis of accounting. In our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the aggregate cash and unencumbered cash balances of the city of Concordia as of December 31st, 2017, and the aggregate receipts and expenditures for the year then ended in accordance with the financial reporting provisions of the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide described in Note 1. What you have there is what they call an unmodified opinion on the regulatory basis of accounting. So what that means to you as a board, as a commission, is that the numbers that are in here we feel are a materially accurate representation of what happened during the year and how you ended the year based on all the testing that we did as part of the audit. Then the next couple paragraphs talks about the supplemental information. Tells you that we audited every piece of information that's bound in this document as you read through that. Page 4, actually 4 and 5 there, statement number 1. The basis for this statement is to show users at a glance that you're in compliance with the cash basis laws. So if you look at the fourth column over from the left, ending unencumbered cash balance, if any of those were negative, you would be in violation of Kansas statutes, meaning you had obligated cash in excess of unencumbered cash balances. As you glance down through there, you can see that all of them are none. None of them are negative. I guess that'd be a better way to say it. KMAG a couple years ago actually redid this statement. I really liked the way they did it because they put it into categories. Like your very top one is the general fund. You can see there you started out with $836,000. We brought in $4,096,000, spent $4,977,000, so ended the year with $856,000. The next section is special purpose funds. Those are funds that are brought in by the city that can't be used for except their specific purpose. The easiest one and actually the most general one to explain is like the special highway fund. It's at 3 lines down. Every time somebody puts gas in their gas tank at the local gas station, some money goes to the state, comes back to us in the form of special highway tax money, in which we cannot spend that money for anything but streets and highways. We can't spend it. We have a water line break, we have a anything that happens out there, we cannot spend it for anything but streets and alleys. Sometimes we have people that say, oh, well, we ended the year with $5.3 million. Why can't we pay off the debt and just be better off as a city? Well, that's because we have specific monies that are held for specific purpose. You've got the library fund, it ended at 0. Industrial development ended at $1,800. Special highway was ended at $90,000. All those monies that are listed in the special purpose section there are brought in for that specific purpose. So you can't just spend them for anything. Then you've got your bond and interest funds, which those are monies that are brought in specifically to pay our debt. You've got your capital project funds, in which those are monies that are set aside for future purposes, but for a specific purpose. You've got the 3 different ones there. And then I like how they changed the name of that last section to business funds. Your utility funds are actually all considered a utility or a business. State statute says that once you pay all the bills of that fund, you can use it for anything you need to see fit, because it is a for-profit type of business. As you can see there, your water fund actually started out at $653,000. We brought in 1.5, spent 1.4, and then the year was $746,000. Most cities that we deal with, we actually do 32 cities now as a firm. A majority of the cities are trying to set a goal of having at least 6 months worth of funds set aside in a business fund. Because we can't, a water line breaks, a sewer lift station breaks. I've had a city call me before because they didn't have enough money in their sewer fund because a lift station broke and it's going to cost them $30,000 to fix. You've got to have enough money set aside to make those necessary repairs, but you've also got to consider the fact that we've got to be able to maintain operations. Plus, you've got to have leveraging money. Like with the KDHEA loans that we're familiar with, they require that you have some leveraging up front to be able to get those type of loans. So you're not setting in too bad of a spot, because you can see there that 1.4 million is what you spent for the year, and you have 746,000 sitting there in the water and sewer fund. So we're setting at pretty close to a half of a year's expenditure. So you're setting in a good spot. As you glance down through the entire thing, you're going to see that down there on the bottom of the next page, we started the year with $3.6 million. We brought in $11 million, spent 9.7, and ended the year with 5.3. The majority of that increase, though, you're going to see it's 3/4 of the page down the page on page 4 is your water treatment facility project, in which we had brought in loan proceeds that we had not spent yet. But if you do sit and look at each fund individually, because I was trying to point out that you should look at them in groups. You shouldn't look at them in total. You should really look at them in groups. Your general fund had a good year because we increased it by $20,000 with with a $4 million budget, or $4 million in expenditures. That's a pretty good increase. Then your business funds, as you look down through those, you can see that we did increase those also. So overall, I think you have a positive audit when you're looking at unencumbered cash balances compared to the prior year compared to this year. Then on the second page there, it actually has a reconciliation back to the cash balances that you have seen as a city, listed out by the cash on hand, checking accounts, investments. Comes down to a total of $5.7 million. Footnote number 1, which starts on page 6. The footnotes that they go from page 6 all the way to page 17. They're the words that describe the numbers in the front. Like footnote number 1 is the significant accounting policies. 90% of the cities in the state of Kansas follow the regulatory basis of accounting. And so if you picked up their audit, you would see basically these same footnotes on page 6, 7, 8, and 9, because it's talking about how we account for regulatory basis accounting. Regulatory basis accounting is cash receipts plus expenditures. which expenditures include expenses plus payables. So any disbursements we've made, plus any commitments or payables that we've made. So if you spent it in December, or you had the work done in December and didn't pay for it till January, it doesn't matter. It still goes back to December because you had committed that money in December. So footnote number 2 at the bottom of page 9 gets it into information that starts getting specific to your city. The bottom of page 2, as you read through that footnote, if we had any problems with Kansas statutes, they would be noted there. You're going to read through that paragraph and the last one, in which we had no problems with Kansas statutes as we did your audit. And just so you know, this year the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide gives us a list of things to test you for on an annual basis. We can't test you for every law that's out there and every statute. We'd be here all year. Staff would hate us because we'd be here all the time. But they give us a list. This year's list was 9 pages long of individual items that we were required to test as Kansas statutes. And you look down through there, you can see it says none. You were able to satisfy all those statutes that we did test this year as part of the audit. The top of the next page, page 10, talks about deposits and investments. In the state of Kansas, you are limited in where and how you can invest your money. We can't just go invest in the stock market. We have limitations. We cannot just go put our money in Wichita because they offer the best market rate. We have to invest in the local counties. There's statutes out there that say there's rules. And in the last paragraph there, it talks about the concentration of what they call credit risk. And in the state of Kansas, you are required to have anything above FDIC limits covered with what they call securities pledged, in which the bank pledges some of their investments to ensure that all your money is secure. So if the bank would fail, you'd be able to get all your money back as a city. In your case, you're going to read down through there, all of your money was properly secured at year end. And actually that has been on the statutory checklist that I did. It was on that number 2 checklist. It's been on there like 6 years now in a row. We test that at 2 different times during the year to verify that you were fully secured. And all those times that we tested, you were fully secured throughout the year. So that's a good thing. Footnote number 4 talks about capital leases. In the state of Kansas, we're allowed a couple different financing options. Capital leases is one of them. That talks about your copier lease that you have. And actually on the next page, I like this presentation a little bit better. You've got your it lists out all the long-term obligations of the city, long-term debt, in which it lists it out. You got the first section there is your GO bonds, then your bonds that are paid with tax levies and utility revenues, and then the copier lease that shows up in there. So you can see there that we started the year out with $6.1 million of long-term debt. We obtained a 2017 series for $2.2 million and then paid it down by $1,069,000. So I actually ended the year with $7,336,000 of long-term debt for the city. The next page shows that being paid off. And it's done in 5-year increments. We got the first 5 years, and then it goes in 5-year columns after that, because most of your city planning is done in 5-year phases. You can see a lot of your debt's actually going to be paid off in 2020. The 2012 doesn't go off till 2022, but the 5, the 12C, and the 15 all get paid off in the year 2020. The 11A gets paid off in 2021. 2011B gets paid off in 2020. But you can see that just gives you a description of and a demonstration of how that debt's going to be paid off with the city. The next footnote on page 13 talks about operating leases and the fact that you do rent some items. In your case, you are renting a postage machine That's the only thing that you had out there. And you pay $35.95 for 36 months. Oh, and advertising display requires monthly payments of $50 for 36 months. So last year you paid $1,031 in rent expense, and then there's commitments into the future. Now those commitments into the future that's listed in footnote number 6 do not show up as encumbrances or payables up in that front financial statement. Most of those lease agreements or rent agreements, have the 30 or 60 day get out of jail card or whatever, you cancelable. So you don't list them as a liability in the front, but we do disclose that you are committed clear out to 2020 for some of your payments. We do list out in footnote number 7 your economic development loans. The city has no liable money for those, but you are a backer of those, and so we disclose the principal balances of those. There was one industrial revenue bond with $1.1 million and one recovery zone facility bond issue for $1,143,000. Then footnote number 8 talks about your CAPERS plan and the fact that you do participate in CAPERS, which is the Kansas retirement system. Down at the very bottom of the page, we talk about the fact that you did contribute $119,000 into CAPERS on behalf of your employees, and you contributed $160,000 last year into the KP&F system, which is the police and fire retirement system. The next page, actually the top paragraph, actually scares a lot of people, but that is your liability. Your portion of the state shortfall with the CAPERS system is $1,178,000, and the KP&F is $1,521,000. That is, if the state decided to stop funding it as of December 31st, that would be how much you would have to put into the pot for the employees that have already committed to retirement and into the future. Truthfully, I don't know that that's a true liability. The state's going to pick up that plan most of the time. I would hope that the state's general fund will pick up any shortfall of the CAPERS system, but we are now required to disclose that amount to you as a city council to say that, hey, if the state stopped funding it, that's how much they're short to be able to fully fund that pension program. Footnote number 9 talks about your capital projects. Your capital projects are those that I was talking about just a little bit earlier. They have public approval through projects. They don't go through like the regular budget process in August that you do. They actually get specific approval. Like the College Drive Hike Trail at the very top. You, as a commission, authorized $169,835, but we actually spent $124,935. Estimated completion date is 2018. And so the thought process is there's another $40-some thousand to spend there, and it will be spent in 2018. But that's where the change orders are going to come into play, is because they legally cannot spend more than $169,000 on that hike trail unless they come back to you with a change order to say, hey, wait a minute, this is why it's going to cost more. Bottom of the page, we talk about notes receivable and loans receivable. You actually do have one economic development loan that's still outstanding. We list it there. And we also talk about the fact that your statements are on cash basis, so it's not reflected in the front unencumbered cash balance number. Then we got the obligations under guarantee. We've got 2 of them that we list out there in footnote number 11. Footnote number 12 talks about long-term obligations from operations, in which that's your vacation, sick leave policies that you have in place. And we talk about how much the estimated liability is down there at the very bottom of the page for vacation time, because your employees had earned it but not yet taken it, but it doesn't show up in statement 1 because it's not an actual payable or encumbrance. Top of the next page continues on with other long-term obligations. We talk about your the health insurance, COBRA, You do have some health insurance early retirement plan going there. Footnote number 13 at the bottom of the page talks about risk management. You do handle that through the purchase of insurance policies, plus you do participate in the Kansas Municipal Insurance Trust, which we disclosed there. Footnote number 14 at the top of page 17 talks about interfund transfers and the transfers that you made between the individual funds. As you glance through there, you can see that all of them have a statutory number beside them, so they were all legal transfers is basically what we're describing there. And then footnote number 15 is subsequent events in which there were none. Material subsequent events. The rest of this, we're going to talk a couple more minutes about this. Footnote, or page 18, which is schedule number 1, is prepared to show users at a glance that you are in compliance with the budget laws of the state of Kansas. That's the public approval piece that I was talking about a while ago. You have to have public approval to spend the money, which that's through the budget process. The project piece was in that one footnote. Here's the public budget process. As you glance down through there in that very last column, variance over and under, I kind of don't like that it's negative all the way through, because negative is a good thing in this case, which means you're under budget. And as you glance down through there, you're going to see that you were under budget in all the funds that you had certified last year through public approval. Then the rest of the notebook, I'm not going to sit and go page by page. This is the funds that you're used to seeing on a monthly basis. General fund, like the very top line, general fund property tax, ad valorem property tax. You can see prior year, we put a prior year column in there so you can compare it. Prior year, you brought in $826,000 of property taxes. In 2017, the next column over, you brought in $836,000 of property taxes. But in the next column over, budget, $864,000. That's actually property taxes that you had levied. So the difference there, that variance of $27,566, that's your local taxpayers that didn't pay their tax bill in 2017. $27,566. Well, the hope is that the next year, that next line down, delinquent taxes, you can see it was $25,000 in 2016, $12,000 in 2017. Well, we're hoping that $27,000 is sitting there in that variance column in 2017. That's going to be the delinquent taxes that we collect in 2018, hopefully, depending on how our county clerk is, or county treasurer. But the rest of these statements are laid out in your state format. So when you approve that budget in August, this is the same format that you're going to see it in. Ad valorem tax, delinquent, motor vehicle, recreational, 1620, all the way down the line. Your expenses are also located by department, and then they're broke down between personnel, contractual, commodities, capital outlay. So each of your different individual funds are all there, all the way to the back of the page. All the rest of the entire booklet. I'm not going to sit and go through each individual page with you. When you're looking through information, you're going to see that we did not have any audit adjustments, which to me, that says that you are getting numbers on a monthly basis that are accurate, because we didn't have to have any audit adjustments. So that means that Amber is doing a really good job on making sure that numbers are in the right spot. Numbers are accurately reported to you. There's 2 letters that were in your audit. Let's talk about those real quick. There's a single page letter without any staples. That is what they used to call the management letter. It's now called the letter to those charged with governance. And as you read through that, you're going to see that we had no items that rose to the level of being reported to you as a material weakness or significant deficiency in your internal controls, meaning bank reconciliations were completed. We found cash receipting procedures to be sufficient. We found all the different items of internal control that we documented to be in proper order, in proper working order, because we did test some of those items to make sure they were in working order. The other letter that's in there, it's got a staple on it. It's got quite a few pages in it. That is a letter that is for management and the commission only. This is what they call the presentation letter. In the past, if I would have had anything that was a problem, anything that rose to the level of a difficulty, I would have came to you orally and talked to you and said, Amy's not cooperating. Make her. In your case, you're going to read through this letter and you're going to see it is a boilerplate letter because we did not have any of those type of difficulties encountered during the audit. We didn't have to consult any outside accountants because you were doing something crazy with your books. But it is important that you do read through that letter because it does have some good information in there. But it is a boilerplate letter, meaning we had no problems encountered while we were doing your audit. Then the last section, that was like the first 2 pages of that letter. The rest of that letter is what they call the management representation letter, which again, it used to be signed between management and the auditors. Well, now it's required that we disclose it to everybody. We call it the reminder letter because as management reads through it, if there's anything that's in there that is applicable, they should have talked to me about it. Because as you read through it, it's going to talk about related parties. It's going to talk about lawsuits. It's going to talk about violations of laws. It's going to talk about contracts. And as they read through that, if there's anything that is applicable, they should have talked to me about those type of situations. In your case, you're going to read through that letter and you're going to see it as a boilerplate letter because we did not have any of those type of situations that rose to the level that management felt like they needed to come talk to me about with those. All right. That was kind of a quick presentation, but do you have any questions? I think you have a pretty good audit setting in front of you. Your cash balances, I mean, your overall ending unencumbered cash was up because of the proceeds you had in there, but all your other funds, you were able to increase just a little bit, a tiny bit. So I think you had a positive year.
I have pretty good staff, that's why.
I fully believe that.
I really continue to appreciate your ability to translate this in a language in which I can understand.
Thank you.
So it's very helpful, and it just validates the efforts on all parts. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
See you
Thank
next
you.
year.
Thank you.
I would move to accept the audit and to authorize the mayor to sign the management representation letter.
I have a motion by Chuck. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Keaton seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All disapproves? Same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to Senior Center budget request.
Hello, I'm Tony Burnett. I'm the bookkeeper and the Director of Public Transportation for the Senior Citizen Center. I think this is the 3rd time that I've stood up here and asked you for money. And so, 3rd time's the charm, is that right? For the last couple of years, we've received $10,000 from you for requesting that we continue to receive that amount. Although we will be facing a larger debt or a larger problem with our vans next year. In 2019, our vans will have about 100,000 miles on them, and it'll be time to replace them. KDOT expects that they have a life expectancy of 100,000 miles or 5 years, and it'll be both next year. Those vans are currently running at $39,000 a vehicle, and even with 80% of that covered through KDOT and FDA funding, that still comes to about $15,600 that the Senior Center is going to have to come up with to replace those vehicles. We've had a pretty busy year as far as finances and things going crazy. We've had freezers die and a refrigerator die and a stove and a proofer and a steamer. All told, in the last 2 years, we've put about $16,000 worth of equipment into our kitchen just so that we can continue to do the good work that we're doing. And to give you an idea, last year, 2017, we did over 18,000 meals delivered through our Meals on Wheels program or served in-house. About 7,000 of that was delivered to people who are homebound, and we have roughly 30 volunteers a month that do that to make sure that those are delivered and people continue to be able to live in their homes and enjoy Concordia. Our van service, the public transportation, continues to be well utilized. We had just short of 16,000 rides last year, which is a lot of rides with 2 vans. We're running around 60, 70 rides per day. At the beginning of the month, we do as many as 110 because people have the money to spend. We would appreciate your continued support, and if you have the ability to help us any with the purchase of the vans, that would be very good for us. It's a huge expense for such a small center. We're not hugely funded. We don't have millions of dollars sitting around or huge donor base to support this type of program. We mostly rely on you guys and the state for help with the grant program.
So what's the total amount you're requesting this year?
I'm asking for the 10,000. If you can do any more, that would help.
Okay.
Because we have roughly 16,000 additional costs in operating for the vans, above and beyond our regular expense for 2019.
Okay.
And several of our board members are here. You've got Dan Gerber, our president, Rosella, our treasurer, Nancy, our secretary, and then Teddy, the director of the center. I don't know if they have anything they'd like to say, but they're here.
You've done very well, Tony.
Okay.
I hate to say it, but Tony's leaving us and going out to the big village of Sharon Springs.
Yes. Population roughly
Almost
700.
into Colorado, and I hate to lose Tony, but I have no choice.
Yeah, so you don't have to see me again.
Hey, Tony, that 16,000 would be like once every 5 year.
Roughly. Yeah, it would be once every 5 year unless we were to try to stagger it, which is something that I've considered. If we're not able to get enough funds to cover both vans replaced, then the idea would be to replace the one that's in the worst shape, and then the following year replace the next one.
Well, I know a number of individuals that very much benefit from the services provided, and really think that it's an invaluable element.
Yeah. The Senior Center, everything we do it's a wonderful service for this community. Of course, it doesn't make any money, which is why I'm here. But
Well, but it'd be a shame to see what it'd be without it.
yeah, I agree.
And Tony, the city's going to miss you.
My name's Teddy Lineberry. I'm the manager of the Concordia Senior Center. And I don't usually say anything when we come to these budget meetings because Tony does such a great job. Believe me, I've wept at the fact that he's leaving us because he's been a huge, huge benefit for our center and for this community. But I want to impress upon you something that I think is very important that doesn't get said enough, and that is when the public transportation service started, It was the senior center van. And we used it for senior citizens in our community. Over time, it evolved, and then we had 2 vans, and then it became public transportation. That means it's no longer for seniors. Seniors can use it, but it's also for those people that are going to their jobs, or going to Walmart, or going to the tobacco shop, or the liquor store, or wherever they're going, they're using public transportation. It is public transportation. That means it's for the city. It's no longer for the senior center. And every year we have to take senior center money that we could use in our center to pay for renovations, new chairs, tablecloths. We have no money for those things because we're paying for public transportation. So any help we can get from the city, because it's your city, your public transportation that we're managing. Believe me, we'd love to give it to you. We'd love for you to manage it and you to support it. But since we've taken on that role, we really depend upon your help. And we cannot afford to get new vans, that's for sure. So if you could help with any of that, it would really be appreciated. And thank you for helping us every year with supplementing our staff's income, because they would get minimum wage. And you can't keep staff working that hard for minimum wage, day in and day out. And by helping to supplement that, by giving them that extra $1 an hour, we can hang on to some of them that we really need to, like our cook, for instance. So thank you. Thank you for your attention. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Teddy.
Moving on, the Resource Center budget request.
I think I have to bring this down just a little. I'm a little shorter than everyone else. So, thank you for letting me come and bend your ear tonight. I am Tanya Merrill, the Executive Director of the Cloud County Resource Center. And this year we have just a little bit of a change to what we've done in the past. This is only my second time appearing before you. And we this year would like to see if it's at all possible, at least have you consider increasing our budget by $1,500. And here is the reason why. So that would actually be $21,500 in total. Last year, the food bank served just under 1,700 people, which was an increase of 400 people from the year before. The majority of that 400 people coming in during the time period between May 20th and August 15th. So during that summer session when the children are out of school. If you look at the second of your bullet points, you will see why. Of that number, 850 of those people were seniors over the age of 55 and children under the age of 12. It's what the state and I consider the most fragile of our populations, because this is fixed income or people who can't work for themselves. So this is really sort of the backbone of what a food bank should be looking at. You know, who do we most need to protect? This number is pretty high on that list. Currently, the state has warned us that while we've continued to see increases across the county, this year we will be looking at 16% of Cloud County instead of the 15.5 we looked at last year. Now keep in mind that's all of the outlying communities, Meltonville, Aurora, Glasgow, everybody. And there are some large pockets of very deep poverty there. I can tell you during my time teaching in Meltonville, I learned a whole new meaning for what poverty looks like for our students, for particularly those people in that fragile population. And these are people that might, if at best, look at one meal a day, if they're lucky. So when we talk about food instability, that's really what we're looking at. We're looking at folks who might go more than 2 days without eating, particularly if they're parents. That is one of the most common things I hear from people coming to the food bank, that they're going to skip eating today because they want to make sure their kids do. And I keep telling them, don't do that. That's what you have us for. Come and visit us instead. But remember, they can only do that once every 3 months, so we're trying to kind of keep things balanced. The biggest number here, the biggest trend that sort of complicates the issue is the next of your bullet points. We are currently serving 20% of Concordia proper, just the township of Concordia, 19.9, that little negligible bit of accounting. And these are regular visits to the food bank, but these are people who only came to the food bank once last year. We take out the repeat visits so that you guys get an unduplicated count. So we do see a percentage of folks more than once a year. When I make this count, I take them out and I count them only once so that you guys get the unduplicated count. Unfortunately, that number still is 19.94, somewhere in there, so I went ahead and rounded up that little bit. Since January of this year, we have seen between 10 and 15 new families. So these are people who are not from Concordia originally, not even necessarily from the state of Kansas, who are moving into this area and trying to establish households. So we are seeing a drastic change to our population. We're seeing that number go up. And summer is always our busiest season, and so far this year we've fed 700 people, and we've added on another 150 for the month of June, which is right on schedule. Last year we closed out June at 182 or 83, so we still have about 5 days left of June for food bank. We are likely to pick up the remainder of those people and end just right under 170, I would expect. So in other projects that we work on, and remember these other projects are predominantly funded by grants, so we don't actually have to allot any money here unless we run aground of problems. We packed 225 school bags last year, which was more than 150 more than we had anticipated, and those are packed for a $6 fee to families. So per child you get your school bag for $6 filled with all of the things that the school asks us to make sure those kids have. So we make no profit off of that, but we do help the schools and we help the kids make sure that they have all the things that they need. We packed 150 food baskets and assisted in processing 140 toy baskets with the Girl Scouts. So that's that collaborative holiday basket project you've seen, it probably reported in all kinds of places and heard me talk about before. When we first started this project, probably 5 or so years ago, we packed less than 50 baskets. The first year that I packed those baskets, we packed about 105, and we thought that was quite a nice increase. Then we packed 290 last year, as you will see. So we doubled our number and then pretty well doubled up again. Over a 2-day period, we helped 138 children purchase, wrap, and take home approximately 2,000 presents for their family members during our holiday store, which is staffed entirely by volunteers and can be as many from 12 to 20 volunteers during that 2-day period. This year, we added a new program that will be our care bags for kids to help provide comfort to kids in protected custody. We packed about 30 of those care bags, which then go into storage until the kids come into custody, then bags go out with the kids. So we won't have a proper count yet of how much use those have gotten yet, since they've only been in storage to go out since, I don't know, the end of May. So a little more than 30 days maybe. We've helped establish and help support 3 little free pantries or emergency pantries across the county, including Cloud. The college, we helped set up a permanent pantry, so they will be looking at their physical location this fall to help support their students. We put one in Meltonville, and we assisted with the one that went in at First United Methodist. So we are trying to expand that reach without expanding our budget to do it. So as we continue to do that, hopefully those will become more self-sustaining and we won't have to do anything else. We helped 25 families apply for LEAP. Remember, LEAP is that government program that helps them get assistance for energy and sort of utility bills in general. And we also, since January, helped 72 families pay a total of $10,116.06 worth of utility bills. That is paid exclusively from grants. So that does not come out of our budget, but that number will continue to go up as well. So it's a difficult pace for us to maintain, which would be why we came to ask for that $1,500, which will help us to ensure that we have food in the food bank. That is literally to be earmarked to be perishable foods in the food bank. Just like last year, there was some press about Small Acts, my donor campaign that we started, a 12 for 12 program. This is designed to help supplant that, since it's kind of slowed down a little bit in its second year, to make sure we have money for perishables, particularly things like milk, meat, eggs, cheese, those kind of things. And in case you were wondering, we have only 1 paid employee, so the money is not going to pay for extra staff. I'm it, and I am only part-time. The rest of our work is done with 6 volunteers who staff food bank judiciously, and for which I would be lost without, and as many as 12 to 20 depending on the projects when we do our projects. So packing school bags, holiday store, it's all staffed by volunteers. Do you guys have any questions for me?
No.
I think that's my shtick, so thank you for letting me come and talk to you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tanya.
Move on to the demo program application, 1019 Washington.
I think Commissioner Matthew asked about this a few weeks back, and they came in and applied. Got the application up there, got photos of the thing, but it's severely dilapidated and it needs it. So I recommend we accept it into the program based on the low bid from Snavely Excavating for $59,8250. And I did the math on the application to show what the refund would be back to them minus the title search fee. $2841.85 would be the reimbursement back. There it is right there. It's hard to read now. It's $2841.
Okay.
Not $248, but
Now, does that property, once we do that, who owns the property after?
the owner still owns it. It's Swihart's. And actually, that's been tied. I believe it's a separate piece now, but they just want to tie it and make it part of the backyard of that house he owns adjacent to it. If you look at my memo, he owns the land and the house adjacent to on the east and north side of that property. That's just a little piece that was carved out by the alley and built, I don't know for what reason, in the 20s or 30s.
Yeah.
So he's just going to make it part of the yard of that house that he's currently remodeling. And it definitely qualifies.
So the,
Are you reading my math?
well, it looks like $284.
No, it's 20. I missed the one there. I missed the one.
okay.
So it's $2,481 or something like that, but it's
Okay.
half minus $150 is what it is, because the title search fee comes out of that reimbursement. And it used to be $125, but here about a year ago they raised it to $150. So
I would move to accept 1019 Washington into the demo program based on the bid from Snavely Excavating for $5,982.50.
I have a
Second.
motion from Keaton. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Christie. All in favor? Now, for any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
thank you.
Next up, FAA grant agreement, airport parking lot.
Mayor and Commissioners, this is a grant agreement for the airport parking lot and the entrance out there. A while back, we did the bids on this and got them in. The total price for this grant is $312,110, and out of that, $914 of that is non-participating. So it brings it down to $311,196. And that non-participating is the asphalt that is east of the building that J.P. Metzler's in right now for that engineering firm. They would not participate in removing that. That's why that's.
Is it what that extra
That's what's in-
$1,000 is for?
Yes. So we'll have to pay for that on top. So our share of this is gonna be like $31,119 and some cents or whatever. So, is there any questions on that, or?
And we discussed this in a previous meeting, a couple meetings ago, right? I think we did.
We did the bids for the airport
Yeah.
for that project.
Yeah.
We approved at that time to go ahead and submit for this
I
application.
mean, I
at
read the
that
whole
time.
thing. I think it was familiar. I remember we talked about it.
I can try to answer any questions if you have them on any of this.
I move to authorize the mayor to sign the FAA grant agreement for the airport parking lot.
I have a motion from Mark. Do I have a second?
A second.
I have a second from Keaton. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
I need to have you approve somebody signing it.
I think we,
The grant app.
Yeah.
The mayor?
Okay,
Mayor
okay,
sign it. Yeah.
good enough. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
Move on to manager's report.
Mayor and Commissioners, we had a few things going on here the last couple of weeks. One of the exciting things we've been working on is proceeding with the design of the signage for Heritage Trail. Been working with Ron and Chris on that. We've been working with Wildside Graphics locally here with Mark Hedrick. Got kind of a neat design. We ran into one of the signs that creates a little bit of a challenge, but we know that we can make it work. So hope to have something for you to take a look at here in the near future. We'd hope to get those installed early fall so that we could still have our official ribbon cutting once all the signage is in place in the early fall. We'd also talked a lot recently about railroad crossings and kind of the rough crossings and things. And I know that Justin and Ron have been working with them. And I think Justin finally got a hold of somebody, a live person at Cal Railroad not too long ago.
I got a hold of a customer service lady who probably doesn't want to talk to me ever again, but then was put in contact with the new general manager. I believe is what he'd been on the job for 2 weeks. Gave me his personal cell phone and said he was going to be coming down. He had somebody in the area that day. Should have come down, and they didn't. Well, Well, I'm gonna call his personal cell phone tomorrow and ask him why he didn't, so he might regret getting that.
So sometimes when we take one step forward, we end up taking 2 steps back too. We had an issue this week where I think Kyle Railroad experienced a bridge issue and it caused some delays on the track. We anticipate that there'll be an increased amount of traffic on the Kyle Railroad line through Concordia for the next several months through potentially October, I believe. What this means is this may result in additional delays for people wanting to cross from one side of the track to the other. So we're just asking people to allow extra time, maybe up to an extra 20 minutes or so. This involves safety regulations that the railroad has to follow. For example, every time they assemble or put a train back together, they have to test the air brakes up to a minute on each train, or on each car. So if you have 20 cars, there's 20 minutes, for example. So there's not a lot that we can do about that. There's not a lot of pressure we can put on them. We just want to get them, hopefully they can fix their bridge and get things through safely, and just ask for people's patience as we work through that as well. Finally, just wanted to thank everyone in the community and Mayor and Commissioner, especially your support as we work through a lot of changes with the police department here the last couple of weeks. Healing and hurt is going to take a little bit to kind of find our new normal, and we do have some vacancies to fill too. We recognize that we still need to continue to serve the public to our best of our ability and to keep them safe, and we are progressing through that as well. So happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Mark?
I have 3 things. One is thank you, Amber, and everyone else, and Amy, for all the work you did on the audit, and especially for all the work you do every day, because it wouldn't have been a good audit if you weren't doing that. And I've been through a lot of audits and various situations, and been through some really bad ones and grueling ones, and I just appreciate having that type of report. So I just want to thank everybody that had a part of that. Second thing is, I've had a lot of people since I moved back here in 2015 that come up to me, and I've probably had it 20 times saying, do you regret moving back to Concordia, or are you still happy you moved back to Concordia, or why did you move back, or whatever. Friday was a good example of why. That funeral and the way everybody pulled together as a community, fellow employees. That kind of sums it up. And there's a lot of other things that make me happy about moving back here, but my wife and I, the answer is always quick out of our lips. No, we don't have any regrets moving back here. But, given the circumstances, Friday went very well, and it was a good showing from the public. It's a big thing for any funeral in town, but I was proud of the city of Concordia Friday. I'm proud of the city of Concordia every day, but Friday was amazing. And I know Mark is happy, and Lisa is very thankful because I've talked to her. So the other thing is I've had a lot of people ask me about the 4th of July, and I talked to Amy earlier just to refresh my memory on the 4th of July and the fireworks, and when they can do fireworks and when they can't do it, and the quiet time from 11 to 7 according to our noise ordinance. We'll have to make sure we enforce that. It's the first year of that. This will be the first test of it, and I think we need to enforce that just to make sure that people know it's for real. And it's, I have concerns for people trying to sleep, and I have concerns for pets, because it's really a tough time for animals. July 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and people that there's always people who are going to keep doing it on the 5th and 6th and 7th and all that. But I'm glad we have that ordinance. I'm not a fuddy-duddy on fireworks, but after about 4 days, it gets old. So that's all I have.
Really would probably say a lot of what Mark said. So I won't say it again, but it was very there are always going to be challenges that we'll experience, and I think the thing that I'm continuing to be impressed upon is just the effort that we keep putting into doing things the best we can and learning from any opportunity we have. There's always a listening ear, but yeah, Friday was a fantastic showing of support, the collaboration of all the departments working together to provide a very solid service for a fallen brother. It was just a very moving experience. I'm very proud to be in Concordia, a non-native, but just continued impressed upon how wonderful a community we are and the hard work that so many put into making this the community it is.
They've summed it up perfectly.
Christine?
I guess I would echo what you guys have already expressed, but I do have a couple of other things. And one of these I think we're going to be dealing with as we do our budget planning. It's brought to my attention the East 16th Street, over there by Subway, around Subway and the car wash behind it, and how much is washed down there, the dirt and stuff. At any rate, is there a plan for doing any additional work on that street? Like curbs or anything like that? I think that might help. Part of that doesn't even have any curbing, I don't think. So the property owner would need to pay for the materials. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's
a lot of that gravel runs off from some of the. There's an unpaved street.
There's an unpaved street up there. Yeah.
So I think it's probably a lot of the washout that comes down from that.
It's kind of like what I think was happening on 18th Street. We had complaints from citizens also.
Yeah.
We've had some main breaks there on 16th Street.
Yeah.
Too, that have settled and dropped down in places and stuff too. I mean, it's hard to go in and fill them in sometimes. Try and straighten it out. That's what we're talking about on
Mm-hmm.
the street itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And then one of the things I just noticed this morning on my walk on the 400 block of West 8th, but I saw that there was a barricade there. I assume that something's going to be happening there.
Is that where the pavement's all
Yeah, it looked like the
chunked up?
pavement buckled up, and then the rain probably.
I think there's a manhole lid underneath the street. It's a concrete lid. What it does when that thing runs under pressure, it pushes water out underneath that concrete lid and lifts the asphalt.
Because it looked like it was the whole, I mean, just almost across the whole street.
Yeah, kind of dangerous.
Water, once it starts coming out,
Yeah. And then a question about the College Drive. Boy, that's a beautiful street, you know, what you've just finished with. But what about between those sidewalks right there in front of, or be like between the dorms are on the north side and the college is on the south side? There's a part that's, yeah. Well, yeah, I'm curious. It's like we're driving along great, and then.
We did talk with the college when we were looking at that project to find out if we could go ahead and take up that piece of concrete and the brick that was in there. Our goal in street maintenance is to provide a smooth, easy surface, easy for snow removal, easy for anything else that we have to do for maintenance. However, the college was not willing to give up the brick sidewalk or the brick crosswalk at that time. And so in order to preserve the brick crosswalk, we had to leave the concrete section as well.
That's the city street or the college street?
It was the city street. It was.
But we didn't fix it like we wanted to because the college didn't want us to.
we are
Well,
working to establish some relations and some camaraderie. So that was one area where we gave.
As I recall, when that all took place, when that was laid down like that, that was when there was some construction being done, and this was the college's fix, correct? Or that was part of what happened?
I don't remember all of that.
You know, when that happened, they was hauling dirt out there.
Right.
For Taco John's, that was
Okay, yeah.
And that street just went bad.
It just crumbled, yeah.
And then, so we went in there, we actually concreted it, and at that time, the college wanted us to leave out them little areas to put brick in there. And they come back in and they put the brick in there. So, they have some sentimental value is what they said towards that. So we, I mean, it was cheaper for us not to do it by a long way. I wanted to do it, but I really didn't, I mean, I was trying to work with them too, like Amy says,
I don't know that it's hazardous, but it's definitely noticeable.
So when the brick deteriorates, then who replaces it? The college?
That's kind of how our email is with
Yeah.
them.
Yeah,
Okay.
we put them on notice that it would be better to go ahead with taking that section out, smoothing it out, easier for maintenance, but because they wanted to keep it, then if it fails, then it's their maintenance responsibility.
Is that gonna cause a problem with snow plows hitting the lip or anything?
We've been going across them. It's actually better now because before the asphalt was a little higher and we milled it into it and tapered it into it better.
Oh, okay, good.
So, it's better now.
Well, thank you for the clarification. At least now I know why we've got this stretch that doesn't have the beautiful new surface. That's all I
I
have.
appreciate the efforts for collaboration. I think it's a good thing. I hope there continues to be a degree of reciprocity, just as we're trying to be very understanding of Kyle Railroad situation. Hopefully they'll be understanding of the importance of maintaining smooth access across their tracks. So hopefully with this, I'm sort of a fan of the saying, two sayings, but walk softly and carry a big stick, and don't mistake my kindness for weakness. So hopefully this good favor is reciprocated and we can make some good things happen. If not, then maybe we have different conversations. But,
We can wear high heels and we can wear steel-toed workers at the same time, so it's all good.
That may be a more fitting statement for you, Amy, than it may be for some of us, but so be it. To each their own.
I think what really stood out last Friday was whoever lined those kids up at the pool in the respect. I mean, that was unbelievable. And that's something I think those kids are going to remember a long time.
They were coached.
One of the coordinators had told them,
It was Nate.
they very willingly did it though.
Yeah.
You know, just to add on that real quick, I had a friend visit from, he and I were classmates in high school and college, and he moved off to Tampa, Florida. He was in town this past weekend for a wedding down in Wichita. I met up with him, and I was telling him about the service, and he's like, that is probably one of the few things I miss about Kansas. You just don't see that stuff happening in Tampa and larger communities, is that sense of community, that sense of authenticity, genuineness. And he was pretty impressed that something like that would go on, and so that's definitely one of the reasons that we came to Concordia. Amber moved back, and us moving here was that sense of community, and it was couldn't have doubted that anymore. Couldn't have been impressed by that anymore.
The only other thing I got is, as Christy mentioned, before we really jump into the budget, I know we have our 5-year goal on what we're going to do on the streets, but that's flexible. And I think now we've had heavy rains and everything else and weather behind us. I would hope that we reevaluate the streets and move them up on the list where we have to. So when it becomes budget time, we're going to have a list of what streets really need to be fixed this coming year. And then adjust the list up and down. Anything else? If not, do I have a motion to adjourn? Oh, I'm sorry, staff comments. We've heard from you guys so much.
Oh, I have one little tidbit.
That fire on 721 East 6, I think one of you asked about it here a while back. We did just receive a check today for insurance proceeds, $7,500 check we'll be holding against that. Our
Good.
policy says 30 days, but we have 45 now by state law before we have to react to that. But we either have to have a public hearing scheduled by then, and declare it unsafe and dangerous, or they can. I'm hoping. I talked to the owner. I think they're getting on the demo program. It's beyond saving.
Yeah.
Apparently,
Yeah.
I didn't know until I talked to them.
Yeah.
So, if anybody asks that, you see it when you drive by. You see the furniture.
Yeah.
Insurance companies, and all that. So, should be getting some action on that. Hopefully, pretty soon.
Okay,
Terrific.
thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other staff comments?
Just going to let you know that you got your budget books about a month later than normal, but they were
Except-
done about a month ago, but I wasn't here at the last meeting.
I was having trouble sleeping.
Now you'll definitely
Well,
not
now
have
that we got all
trouble.
my
trouble
reading it.
But that's for this budget year, obviously, and it summarizes everything kind of from last year and when we were planning, and yeah, it might put you to sleep, but if you want to, you can read it.
Now we get to do it again?
Yeah, it gets you ready for the next budget,
Okay.
I guess.
Any other further comments? If not, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
From Chuck, second? Mark? Any further discussion? No, let's go home.
All right.